Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2022 film Burial. It's a Shudder exclusive and it's coming to Shudder on Thursday, December 29th. So this is a no spoiler review because it's a new film and because when I'm releasing this, it isn't even on Shudder at that point. So gonna get into this one, but I need to say at the top, every film is worth watching at least once just to be sure how you personally feel about it. And if you've been watching my channel long enough, you know that that means I didn't really particularly like this film. There are good things about it, there are bad things about it for me personally, and obviously that's what these reviews are for, and then you can kind of make your decision. But like I always say, every film's worth watching at least once just to figure out how you feel about it, because there are plenty times where I don't like films and people comment and say I actually love this film, and that's great. That's what film is all about. There's film for every person, and I know that this film will probably find its fan base. That said, from my perspective, since Shudder had cuts, job cuts, layoffs, it's films like this, in my opinion, that they should not be purchasing. You know, if they're going to need to be tightening up their purse strings, like I'm assuming AMC is telling them to do, it's things like this that need to go. It pains me to say that just because it's great to give independent filmmakers a shot. And there have been a lot of films on Shudder that have given independent filmmakers a shot, and I loved it. So it pains me to say that, but from a financial standpoint, these are the types of films to get rid of, because this film's not really going to draw people to Shudder to subscribe. So anyway, let's get into the review of Burial. Written and directed by Ben Parker, who also did The Chamber. And I will say this, Ben Parker did a very good job with directing, and the cinematography is quite good. So camera work, really nice, some really interesting camera angles, some really cool shots in general. It looks good. It looks very, very good. So from a directorial standpoint, I think Ben Parker is very talented. I think it's from the writing standpoint that things kind of really devolved for me personally, or really just didn't even get started. But I'll talk a little bit more about that. Again, it's a Shudder exclusive coming Thursday, December 29th. Quick synopsis. It is about a bunch of Russian soldiers after the conclusion of World War II. Or, you know, it's technically over. You know, Hitler is dead at that point. And they are traveling back to Russia with a crate that they bury every single night. And so the big mystery is, what is in this crate? Why did they keep burying it? What's the deal with this? And that is revealed, so you do get that information. And it's just kind of about their journey. And obviously, things go wrong within the journey. You may be saying to yourself at this point, well, what's the horror aspect to it? That is something I asked myself even after watching the film. Where is the horror? Unless the whole aim is, oh, it's just the horror of war. Okay, I understand that, but that doesn't really fit into the horror genre. When it initially got going, it gave me this air of like other kind of films from the shot for this era that have been on Shudder, like, you know, Blood Vessel, Super Deep, even to a degree, Bunker Games, those types of films. And I was like, okay, you know, I like this time period choice. I think it can work really well with horror. It has a few times in the past. But it's just, where's the wow factor? Where's the payoff? Where's the horror? There's literally, like, there's no horror to it. And that's another big reason that I was kind of like, why is Shudder purchasing this? I don't understand. So anyway, the setup in the beginning does present an interesting concept that you really do want to know where it's going. But the problem then becomes that things go so slowly with the film, and you don't get enough new information at good intervals. You don't get enough intriguing things really happening. It really just becomes a war film to a degree. So if you like that, then maybe you will find something to really enjoy with this. But me going into it, expecting it to have some sort of horror element because it's on Shudder, really left me unsatisfied for that reason. Now, if I had approached it from the standpoint of this is just kind of like a war film, it's okay, but it's still very slow. Like, the pacing is really bad, in my opinion. Yes, there's like some firefights that happen that are okay, but I don't know. It seems like it kind of meanders as it's going forward. Like, maybe it wasn't even necessarily a full script that they started shooting with, that they were kind of like, well, then let's do this. Well, then let's do this. It's very unfocused, in my opinion. And there are a lot of scenes that it kind of seems like are just there to waste time and stretch the runtime. And it is like an hour. I think it's an hour and 34 minutes with credits. So it's not super long, but it feels long, in my opinion. And that's not a good thing. I literally wrote in my notes, if you like horror focused on World War II, then you're in luck. Not really, because there's no horror, like I said. I was hopeful at that point when I put that note down there. The color palette is extremely drab, which I think is very, very common for these kind of like World War II films. If you notice that, a lot of them like to have this kind of like leached colored drab palette to films. So it kind of shows like the humdrum and like depressive state of this kind of event. So like it's fine. Like it looks good, it makes sense for what's going on. There are some really interesting looking shots and the angles are constantly changing. That's another thing. They didn't just keep using like the same shots and like the same camera angles. They were switching it up a good deal. So I really enjoyed that. That gave you some interesting things to look at. So like I was saying, Ben Parker did a good job from a directorial and from a cinematography standpoint. It starts to feel like what's going on is a lot of filler. And obviously that contributes to very bad pacing because it's a lot of people talking. Sure, there's some firefights that bust out, but like it's a lot of people just kind of talking. And them talking is just rehashing the same thing that doesn't have anything to do with adding to the story. There really isn't much of any story here anyway. Like, it's very basic idea that I just don't think is executed that well. There are portions where the cuts are too frantic, and it makes it kind of hard to tell what's happening. During, like, the action scenes, yes, there's going to be, like, quicker cuts, but there are moments where they're having, like, cuts that are so quick and frantic that you're just like, I don't know what I'm looking at right now. Like, I don't know what's happening right now. I can't focus enough when you're doing cuts that fast. So I think that was a big mistake. You don't want to do that. But that said, it's only a few times. It's not like it's rampant throughout the film. So it's just a few times. The pacing is not good. It seems like a lot of the film is people walking around. Talking and walking around. It's kind of like, it just reminded me of Clerks 2. When, if anyone's seen that, where the character of Randall Graves is making fun of the Lord of the Rings film, saying that it's just a film about people walking. My mind kind of went to what Randall was saying, and I'm like, this is like a film about people walking and talking, and that's like, yeah. The acting is good. I thought the acting was well done, so that's really good. And the dialogue is good. You know, the dialogue seems very believable. It is well written. So Parker, while I think doesn't write an overall compelling script, he does know what he's doing when it comes to writing dialogue. So that is good. That's a plus. The ending had an element that's interesting, but it just really ends up becoming a tease. They could have given you something cool in a reveal at the end, and they give you more just like a concept that seems like maybe it wasn't fully thought out. So they don't give you everything that you want. It just kind of becomes, like I said, just a tease. And you're kind of like, okay, now I'm very unsatisfied with this because everything leading up to this was already, you know, bad pacing, a lot of talking, a lot of walking, and there's no horror to it. So can't we get a better payoff? Again, where's the horror? Where is it? And the story, just very unremarkable, unfortunately. So not a big fan with this film. I can't... There's a lot of good, like, technical stuff in it. Like, the music is well composed. It's really well acted. Like I said, the dialogue's well written. Directing's good. Cinematography's good. So I can't dock it too much. So out of 5 stars with half stars in play, I'm going to give it a 2-star rating. Thought about going 1.5 stars, but there are enough good technical things that I'm going to bump it up to 2 stars. I don't think this is like an abysmal film. I just think that the story does not perform. You know, there's a problem with the script. It really needed a lot more injected into it. And where's the horror? Where's the horror? Shudder. It isn't necessarily the fault of the filmmakers that there isn't a lot of horror to it. It's the fault of Shudder that they're putting it on the service, because it needs to be horror. At least it needs to have some horror to it. It really doesn't. So I don't get it. I don't get what they saw in this. So anyway, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this film when you've seen it. Go ahead and put it in the comments. We can talk spoilers in the comments. That's totally fine. Do me a quick favor, though. Also, hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell button, all those things. That is the way you can repay me. If you like any of this stuff that I've put out over the years, I've been doing this for years, literally. I think like 4, maybe closing in on 5 years at this point I've been doing this channel. I would just appreciate you giving me the subscribe and hitting the notification bell button, all that jazz. But regardless, thank you for watching this video, and until next time, keep it brutal.